ASMR Who, and this is my initial reaction to Space Babies, episode 1 of the new series. It is just episode 1 that I'm going to be talking about in this video. Of course, the new series has started with a midnight double bill here in the UK on BBC iPlayer. Of course, it will be on BBC One at the sort of standard broadcast time on the Saturday, which should be today as this video goes out. I am splitting the two episodes into two videos, and I'm splitting my sort of viewing of them. So I've just watched episode 1, of course. It's about 1:30. I was a little bit after midnight. I watched that. I'm going to watch episode 2 basically when I wake up in the morning. The review, my reaction for that, will come out tomorrow. So my reaction to Space Babies today on the Saturday, and The Devil's Court will be tomorrow on the Sunday. So I have genuinely only watched the first episode. I've not watched episode 2 yet. And of course, as per usual with these reaction videos, I don't know anyone's thoughts. I don't know what the general consensus is on this episode. I don't know what people think. So this is purely my opinion. So if you're a regular viewer to the channel, and if you watched my previous reactions, my videos talking about the previous episodes, especially with the Church on Ruby Road, you'll know that was not an episode that I was a massive fan of, and so I was kind of hesitant, I suppose, going into this new series. I had low expectations in terms of my own personal enjoyment. Very often I get a real buzz when Doctor Who's about to come back, but I didn't really get that at all this time. I was still, intrigued and excited, but I'm kind of approaching this version of the show very differently to how I normally do. But I wanted to split these two episodes specifically, not only because, I don't want to be up too late doing these, watching these episodes and then doing these reactions, but also because I think that this episode, specifically Space Babies, I suspect will kind of get lost in the mix a little bit. That seems to be the general sort of consensus from the early reviews, which were of the first two episodes, is that this one was less of the standout compared to episode 2, which really seemed to be the one people were talking about a lot more. It's the one that was pushed more in the marketing and the promotion, and so I wanted to split them, the two episodes, for that reason as well. But enough preamble. Basically, what did I think of Space Babies? I thought that it was okay. There were elements of it I really liked, and there were elements of it I didn't much care for. I think I definitely preferred it to the Church on Ruby Road, which I haven't rewatched since December. I watched it twice. I watched it obviously on Christmas Day, and then I think with it a couple of days later I watched it again and didn't really love it too much. Read the novelisation, which was fine, but it's kind of reaffirmed that it's not a story that I really care for all that much. I think I preferred this episode to that one. And what I will say that I was kind of surprised by is the sort of ongoing threads and the mysteries really intrigued me in this episode in a way that they hadn't done in the previous episode. You know, the way this episode presenting the ongoing mysteries and threads of the series in terms of what happened on Ruby Road, who is Ruby's birth mother, the stuff with the snow, the thing of things being a bit more supernatural and a bit weirder were presented much better, I felt, than in, for example, the Starbeast and the Meep saying, "Wait till I tell the boss," or in the Giggle, the toy maker talking about the one who waits, or his legions, or whatever. Those, you know, telling us that something exciting is going to come later doesn't interest me at all. Showing the butterfly effect happen in a way where the Doctor is clearly he kind of takes it in his stride in that initial opening scene. But he's clearly like, that was a bit odd. And again, with the snow, weird stuff is going on and it's confusing him. And I think a lot of that is down to Ncuti and the way he's playing those moments. But I think it's also, you know, the fact that it's the classic thing of show don't tell, and, you know, showing us these mysteries. You know, the snow in the TARDIS at the end. That's much more interesting to me, and those actually really intrigued me, and I'm curious to see how those things will play out based on this episode. Did I also spot a sneaky little Susan Twist cameo? Of course, Susan Twist, who I don't think we realised is kind of an ongoing thread here, not one that was made a big deal of, which I think is really fun. You know, I think she could be a really, whatever's going on with her is very interesting, and the Susan Twist thing, I mean, I think the two sort of main theories I've heard is that she's the meddling monk, and that she is a sentient TARDIS. I think she's probably the monk. She was in this, right? That was her. She was one of the space captain people, because the camera kind of focused on her, and it looked enough like I assumed it was her. Of course, she showed up in Wild Blue Yonder. She showed up in Church on Ruby Road. She's been in the cast list for upcoming episodes. I think she's a tea lady, as in Time Lady, in The Devil's Court. I don't much speculate about these things. She's probably the meddling monk. I've seen people's theories. That makes the most sense. And I think as well, another little clue in this episode is the Doctor talking about Time Lords using titles. You know, obviously the Rani gets name dropped, which would imply that it's not going to be the Rani. It's never the Rani. But it kind of sets up the idea that if there's another Time Lord, they're going to be going by a title, like the Monk. That's probably she is. That's as much as I'm going to speculate on that. But I mentioned there as well, in terms of the mysteries and stuff, Ncuti, and yeah, you know, he was a real bright spot of Church on Ruby Road, and he continues to be fantastic. I think he's a new kind of Doctor, and I can see some people kind of not necessarily warming to him immediately, because he's a very different kind of Doctor to what we've seen before, but he's got the basics, and I think from interviews and stuff, Ncuti is someone who did not really grow up with the show, but has become such a fan of it since getting the role, and you can really feel his love for the show and for the character. There was a great quote I read. He was talking about, in an interview quote, he mentioned about the Happiness Patrol. He talked about the Happiness Patrol, and what happened in it, and what the villain was, you know. He just knew it. And they were saying, you know, Russell asks, he's like, how do you know these things about the classic series? And Ncuti's response, which I think in the interview Millie filled in for him, but this is what he says in response to those, his response is, because I'm the Doctor and I was there. And I absolutely love that mentality. And I think I may not be the biggest fan of this new era, but I think Ncuti will kind of be like Peter Capaldi in the sense that he can make a subpar episode incredibly watchable and enjoyable. I think he's fantastic, to be honest. Is he my favourite Doctor so far? No, but I think he's got a real energy, a real love for the show that comes through. He's so charismatic, and he's a different kind of Doctor, and I think that's very fun. The stuff with the babies, personally, my dog's dreaming, so if you can hear like little woofs and barks and stuff, that's my dog dreaming. Sorry, we'll carry on. The stuff with the babies, I felt it didn't really work for me. The lip syncing was very hit and miss, and I think it didn't help that the first instance, the first baby. Sorry, my dog's really, really having a very exciting dream. The first baby we saw who was speaking, it didn't look very good on the lip sync. I thought that some of the humour with the babies didn't quite work. I didn't really care for them, and I thought that was, I think it's a very weird premise if you're sort of marketing this as season 1 and it's for a brand new audience and stuff. It's very weird to do this premise right out the gate, but then I suppose, so was The End of the World as the second episode, and we're going to go to space and all this, back in 2005. And there was definitely echoes of that in this story, the space station vibe and the Doctor explaining things to Ruby and the bit with the phone and the phone call, treading familiar ground, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it felt kind of familiar and a little bit safe, I suppose. But, if it worked, don't break it, I guess. I was surprised by how much the Doctor sort of went into the explanations or right off the bat, talking about Gallifrey and the fact that his people were genocided and he's the last of his people and all this stuff. It was kind of weird, but I suppose that's kind of, this new Doctor who is kind of free of the package and is more settled and more self-assured and more, he's comfortable who he is, and yes, he's adopted, he doesn't come from where he thought he came from, but Gallifrey's still his home, and it's kind of unusual for the Doctor to be so open about that, but again, it kind of marks this Doctor out as being different from his predecessors. But I felt a little bit like, are we throwing too much at the audience? Are we doing a TV movie and giving a new audience everything right out the gate? Will that sort of just turn them away a little bit and go, oh, there's a lot here to keep track of? I don't know, maybe not. I think while the episode was fine, it's not one I'm going to really revisit much. I thought Millie Gibson was fine in this. I thought she was decent. I had weird reservations about her at Christmas with the Church in Ruby Road. I've kind of got over those now. I think she's good. There was a moment, especially right near the end, where there was a comedic beat. I think right at the end when the Doctor gives her a TARDIS key and she says something about the fact they almost died, and I just thought it was a fantastically well played comedic line. Just a little thing, but I just thought that's really good. But yeah, she was decent. I felt that the whole plot about what was going on with the babies and the bogeyman and all that stuff, I didn't really get it. I thought the idea that they arrive and even the doctor's scared of the bogeyman and he's kind of unsure about that, I thought that was fun. And the idea that it's created to be scary is interesting. But then they trap it in the airlock and they're gonna kill it. But then all the babies don't want it to die, and the doctor, I don't really understand why the babies were worried about hurting it, because surely it was scaring them. Like, that didn't quite make sense. I understand why the doctor would want to save it, but I didn't really understand why it would hurt the babies to kill the bogeyman. Maybe I missed something, that's possible, but that didn't quite work. And some of the gross out humour, what's the bogeyman made of? Bogies, alright. Again, there are just little things where you're doing this big Disney Plus launch and, prioritising American time zones and stuff, and yet the main monster from, like, your first major episode is called the Bogeyman, and he's made of bogies. Americans don't have bogies, they have buggers. So, like, surely that's gonna be pretty much entirely lost on a big audience. Like, that's just a weird thing to do. Like, it's not necessarily a bad concept, but as an introductory story for a Disney audience in America, to create a monster whose name is so, like, quintessentially British in its language is just an odd choice to me. And again, kind of adds to this confused, is this a brand new start to the show? Are we getting a new audience? Or is it the same old silly little British show that it's always been? There was a moment in the Next Time trailer for episode 2 where the Doctor mentions the Toymaker and the Maestro being, one part of the Toymaker's legions, and it's like, oh, okay, so with, like, very specifically referencing the events of the Giggle, so I guess that this new audience has to go back to that episode, which is part of the anniversary specials, which deals with stuff from the last, 15 years of the show. Like, it talks, you've got obviously Donna and Kate Stewart and Mel's there, and it talks about Amy and Clara and Bill and the Flux. So is it a new beginning, or is it not? It's just confused to me. That's a bit of a tangent, isn't it? Do I have any other particular thoughts about this episode? Some of the humour didn't quite work for me. I quite liked the joke about the censoring, the swearing. I liked it the first time. I didn't like the fact that they kept doing that joke and then they tried to censor the Doctor swearing. Like, why? What? Why the Doctor doesn't swear? That's one of those things that just, I don't know if that's just me, but it kind of feels sacred. The Doctor doesn't swear. He's a children's hero, and Russell T Davies, of all people, I would expect him to kind of be on top, not do that, given that he specifically made it, set in stone the idea that on Torchwood, Captain Jack and Martha would never swear on Torchwood because they were Doctor Who characters. So Torchwood original characters could swear, but Jack and Martha will never swear because they're from Doctor Who. And I thought that joke, not that you can't have swearing in Doctor Who, obviously Bill swears, but he's cut off, and you can make jokes about swearing in Doctor Doctor Who, but it feels a bit odd for the Doctor to be the one doing the swearing. And I felt that joke, the nanny filter was overplayed a little bit. It was funny the first time. You shouldn't have kept doing it. I don't think I have any other major specific thoughts. Really, but yeah, overall I thought that it was fine. I don't really do scores or anything like that. I don't think I do anyway. I don't remember doing that for the other episodes. For me, it's fairly middle of the road. I think the actual plot of it, the story, was kind of by the by. Didn't really massively engage me all that much. I didn't care for the baby stuff. I thought that was a bit silly. And I didn't quite understand the plot, like what the plot actually was and what the conclusion was necessarily. But I really like the dynamic between Ncuti and Millie. I really like what Ncuti's doing in this episode. I thought it was great. I think he really is going to be a great Doctor. And I was really pleasantly surprised by how invested I was in the ongoing mysteries of the series and the way they were presented, because, I was very much expecting to not really care for the ongoing mysteries, but the way this episode presented them, with, the Doctor having this memory of the church on Ruby Road and the snow, and, things being a little bit more supernatural and mysterious, and the thing with the butterfly and all that. Ncuti played those fantastically well, and it really intrigued me. So, a real mixed bag, but a fine start to the series. Not the best, not the worst. Yeah, I thought it was okay. But what did you think of Space Babies? Did you enjoy it? Is it your favourite series up now? Is it your least favourite? All those sorts of things. Let me know. Comment, of course. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you like Doctor Who and ASMR, which is what I do on this channel, obviously. And I will see you tomorrow for my reaction to episode 2, The Devil's Cord. Thank you. Bye bye.